Hello, Watchman of Ephraim, or Rick. Just came back from vacation. Spent over a week in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Very beautiful. But now I'm back home, and I guess it's a little icebreaker. And I'm going to do it on Genesis 26:5. Hey, here's Abraham, the father of the faithful. And he's praying to Yahweh. And if you ask a Torah keeper, the Torah keeper might say concerning this picture, well, he's praying on the Sabbath. Because Genesis 26:5 witnesses that Abraham kept the Torah. And I've debated or gotten into conversations with people concerning this scripture, and also, if I might add, I myself believed it back in 1985 when I began to read the literature of the Worldwide Church of God and Herbert Armstrong. I was a member of the Worldwide Church of God for, well, when they were under the law, as well, it wasn't as written by Moses. When we kept the law, 1985 to 1985 to 1995, and then you had these changes where they went mainstream. I believed it myself, but they will say in debates and conversations that Abraham was covenanting with God concerning Torah. For, if I may go to it here, Genesis 26:5, because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. There it is, right? Translated from the Hebrew into English. There it is. He kept the Torah. No, not at all. These people are lying to you. I was lied to, as I will plainly show you. Got to be careful when it comes to this word Torah, because it can be used outside of the law of Moses and outside of the 5 books of Moses to concerning something other than, well, the Torah of Moses and the 5 books of Moses. I'm not a great, I'll get to it. You should see it, hopefully, among other things concerning this video. So I'm going to play here a little snip from 119 Ministries, a Hebrew roots movement, sect, if you want to call them, sect of the Hebrew roots movement. Very cunning, very deceptive, very deceiving. This is one of the most, they're very cunning. So this is from the their lost sheep video about their lie about the Israelites being scattered into all the nations. And now they're waking up to keep Torah. And God's going to bring them back to the land. I did a little video series within a bigger series about this lie of the lost sheep doctrine. But near the end of this video, he's going to do a little indoctrination. He's going to do a little brainwashing concerning how Abraham kept the Torah. And that you should be too, of course, tying it in with the lost sheep, of which are yet to come in the future. There is another captivity coming. And in my next video concerning a Damascus Oracle update, well, I'm going to touch a little bit on that once again. So I'm going to play a little snippet here from 119 Ministries, indoctrinating you into how Abraham kept the Torah. But in the end, he can't even give you an example of how Abraham kept the Torah. And what I mean by that is keeping the Sabbath, keeping the holy days, eating clean meat, wearing tassels, and so on and so forth. The shadow of the good things to come. They can't give you one example. The example they use doesn't even apply. Okay, let me roll with it. It's going to be like 3-4 minutes long, and I'll may cut off the speaker and give my own comments.
We see as spoken in Ezekiel chapter 37, verses 15 through 24. The word of Yahweh came to me, Son of man, take a stick, write on it, for Judah and the people of Israel associated with him. Then take another stick and write on it, for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel associated with him, and join them one to another into one stick, that they may become one in your hand. And when your people say to you, will you not tell us what you mean by these? Say to them, thus says Yahweh God, behold, I am about to take the stick of Joseph, that is, in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel associated with him, and I will join with it the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, that they may be one in my hand. When the sticks on which you write are in your hand before their eyes, then say to them, thus says Yahweh God, behold, I will take the people of Israel from the nations among which they have gone, and will gather them from all around, and bring them to their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them all. And they shall be no longer two nations, and no longer divided into two kingdoms. They shall not defile themselves any more with their idols and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. But I will save them from all their backslidings.
Save them from all their backslidings once again, and deliver them out of all their detestable things. These are not the saints. There's a future captivity coming. If you are accounted worthy to be a priest in the millennium, you're going to rule over these people. This is one of the most demonic doctrines. This movement is so dangerous. It's the most dangerous movement. It's probably more dangerous because it's in the latter days. And what is about to happen to the United States? This is Satan drawing people away from the truth of who Ephraim really is, the United States. Not a bunch of people, a bunch of tribes scattered into the nations right now.
In which they have sinned, and will cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. They shall walk.
They'll have one shepherd, these lost sheep. I can't help but interjecting. But they're going to have shepherds over them. Beginning of Jeremiah 23 and also Jeremiah chapter 3. I will give them shepherds who will feed them with knowledge. That's you if you are accounted worthy. The priesthood that's coming, the firstborn ones.
Walk in my rules and be careful to obey my statutes.
Walking in his rules and careful to obey his statutes, you are going to be the administrator of the Torah. You will be incorruptible. You will be raised incorruptible. You will not have to be a commandment keeper. You will have inherent righteousness. The only God will be dwelling in you in his fullness.
The focus of the Messiah was to bring his kingdom back together as one. One in the faith of Abraham, obedience. Our Messiah.
One in the faith of Abraham, obedience. The faith of Abraham, obedience.
was not concerned with what one's physical lineage
Here's
was.
where he's going to get into the indoctrination concerning Abraham in Genesis 26:5. He's setting you up.
Or boasting that came with it. His concern was obedience. Compare John chapter 8, verse 39. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. This is
So he's using that verse in John chapter 8 to try to convince you that the faith of Abraham was keeping Torah. But we also learn in Galatians chapter 3, verse 11, I do believe, that the Torah is not of faith. I've gone through that with other videos. There is now a Torah of faith, which the accomplishments of Messiah, like the Passover, the days of unleavened bread, and the Feast of First Fruits, are given to you by faith, not on the day those appointed shadow times in their appointed seasons, but when you believe.
huge. Yeshua is saying here that anyone who does what Abraham did is considered the children of Abraham.
So he's saying Abraham kept Torah, kept the Sabbath, the holy days, and all the 613 mitzvah. Oh, by the way, Abraham would have needed a Levite priest, which, if you want to keep it as written by Moses, you need a Levite priest.
Well, what did Abraham do? Look in Genesis chapter 26, verses 4 and 5. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Torah.
Notice he's got in parentheses Torah. Let me just go to, I have it here, Genesis 26, 1 through 5. Let me just do an NIV here, which they copied, I do believe. The NIV took it from the, I do believe they took their Old Testament translations from the Septuagint. Don't quote me on that, but I like the NIV in the Old Testament. There's a good reason, and one day, if the spirit that I'm testing right now is true, well, you're going to find out. Now there was a famine in the land. I don't have to read all that, because notice verse 5 NIV, because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commands, my decrees, and my instructions. Remember, Torah means instruction or teachings. So Abraham kept God's instructions, his commands, his decrees. And even this man will witness these commands and decrees that Abraham kept from God. He can't even come up with, one command, that he kept the Sabbath, the holy days, that he ate clean meat, that he was covenanting. There's just some words I can't pronounce. Covenanting with God concerning Torah, concerning the Sinai covenant. Let me go back here.
According to the words of the Messiah, those who obey God's commandments are those who can truly call Abraham their father.
Okay, so Abraham is the father of the faithful. And, wow. He's saying if you keep Torah, Abraham is your father. Ugh. I'm telling you what. Revelation 3:9. These people are the synagogue of Hasatan. They lie about they destroy the whole Torah, the whole work of God, the whole progressive prophetic revelations of the Torah.
Think about what he said later to the Jews, the physical descendants of Abraham. John chapter 10, verses 24 through 27. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly." Yeshua answered them, "I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me. But you do not believe because you are not among my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." Even of those who may be actual descendants of Abraham, if they do not obey God's commandments, then they are not considered children of Abraham.
So if you don't keep Torah, you're not a child of Abraham. Now this man is outright lying, and I will show you from Scripture, from the verses of the New Testament, that that's not the case. And that Torah, the word Torah, the Hebrew word Torah, can be applied outside of the Torah of Moses, or the first 5 books of Moses.
Again, the focus of Messiah was to bring his kingdom back together as one in the faith of Abraham, not just together as one, but one in obedience to the Father. It truly makes no difference what tribe one may be from, or if they have any Hebrew heritage at all. This is what Paul is saying in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 4, nor to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies which promote speculation rather than the stewardship from God that is by faith, the faith that produces the obedience of Abraham.
The law is not of faith. As written by Moses. You can keep the Sabbath all you want. You can keep the Passover as written by Moses, which released them from the bondage of Egypt, the physical nation of Egypt, and God bought them back through the sacrifice of a physical lamb on the appointed time. You can keep it till it comes out of your armpits, your nostrils, whatever. It's not of faith. But the man who does those things shall live by them. But when you believe, you are released from the bondage of sin, which Egypt is a shadow of. And you get the blood of the lamb, the man. And you're bought back. Right? What did Paul say a couple of times, 2, 3 times? You were bought with a price. That's what he's talking about. By the kinsman redeemer. On the day you believe. What Paul didn't say, once again, is it's okay to keep Christmas and Easter and proclaim Sunday as the Sabbath. The Roman Catholic Church didn't exist, once again, in the 1st century. It's a fake debate. It's a fake paradigm.
James chapter 2, 21 through 24.
Okay, so he's going to give an example of Abraham's obedience to Torah.
Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son?
You would do the works of Abraham. Even that chapter in John chapter 8, the context is not about keeping Torah as written by Moses.
Isaac on the altar. You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness.
Okay. I believe verse 23, Galatians 3, if righteousness comes by the law, then Christ died in vain. You can keep the Torah as written by Moses all you want, the shadow of the good things to come. There's no righteousness in it. It's your own righteousness, you doing the work yourself, like putting leaven out of your house, which was a shadow of the Messiah blotting out your sins on the day you believed. They're liars. They're destroying the whole work of the Torah. And for a review here, what is the Torah? What is the first 5 books of Moses? And what is the law of Moses, the Torah of Moses, written by Moses beginning at Sinai, or the Sinai covenant? It's simply a shadow of the new covenant. Abraham and his descendant, Abraham and his whole household were circumcised on the 8th day. Well, he didn't do it but the command was to him that, an infant when they're born, on the 8th day, they must be circumcised. Well, he circumcised his whole household. But from that command went forth on the 8th day. That command, that instruction, that Torah given to Moses, given to Abraham, uh, foreshadowed humanity's circumcision, the removal of the flesh, the sinner, the sinner dying the second death actually, and putting on the spirit garments, being a new creation. This Sinai covenant is simply a shadow beginning at Pentecost, because on Pentecost, the Shavuot, the Torah was given in the letter on Mount Sinai. And then some 1,500 years later, on the day of Pentecost, Torah was fulfilled. The giving of the Ten Commandments was fulfilled by the giving of the Holy Spirit. It's simply the love of God. If you don't add or take away from it, it's a beautiful thing. It's the beginning of what? This whole covenant is a shadow. The new covenant is the revealing of these laws and commands that are in shadows and dark sayings and written codes, the letter, the gramma as written by Moses. What it ultimately is it's an instruction manual. Well, there's the covenant of circumcision. I forgot to add that. What the Torah is God's instruction manual given to the Son to circumcise humanity on their appointed 8th day, beginning with the Messiah himself, tomorrow after the Sabbath. Just to review, that's what the Torah is. Ultimately, the circumcision of humanity in 3 phases to put on the garments of Godhood, or a Helios Son of God, which this movement is destroying. All of humanity will put on those garments, will be changed from the sinful man of flesh, die, they will have their appointed time of death, and be raised incorruptible. The fullness of God, God all in all. That's what the Torah is all about in the end. Just a quick review. Let me just go on here.
And he was called a friend of God. You see, that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. One's genealogy did not.
So he couldn't even give you an example there. He gave the example of the shadow of God the Father offering up his son on Mount Moriah, Isaac. That work was not part of the law as written by Moses beginning at Sinai. This guy can't even come up with and he's using justification by works. And even if you read which I'm going to get into, the book of James, James had a problem with the Jerusalem Council decision. It seems like he never really fully accepted it. But even James, when he talks about being justified by works, he's not talking about keeping the Torah and the letter. He's not talking about keeping the Sabbath, the holy days, and all that stuff. You can read his examples of works. Being justified by works, it's works of servitude, good works. Like not judging between a rich man and a poor man when they come into your assembly. Like when to or feeding and clothing a poor man. I just don't want to get off too much. This guy can't even come up with. He's using the example of Abraham going to Mount Moriah, taking Isaac, the shadow of God the Father, offering up, giving his son up, offering him up as a burnt offering, which he completed outside the camp, outside Jerusalem, fulfilling the Torah of Passover, the Torah of the intentional sinner, the curse of the law, fulfilling the Day of Atonement in part, the sin offering going outside the camp and having humanity's sins destroyed in his flesh and hide. Right? So I'm going to get out of that. See, this is the end of the lost sheep video, and he's reeling you in now. He wants to indoctrinate you. So now let's get into some examples let's get into some witnesses from the scriptures and verses that the Torah was not given to Abraham, to Adam. The Sabbath command, the weekly Sabbath command, did not begin with Adam. It's another video in itself. Okay, then the next stop, logically, if you know the Torah, would be Deuteronomy 5. Let's start in verse 1. Let me get it back into the King James here. Passed it up. And Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them. Yahweh our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers. Now he's pulling the patriarchs here. With our fathers. Who are the patriarchs? Who's the first one of the patriarchs? It's Abraham. It's Isaac. It's Jacob. Those are your patriarchs. Okay. Verse 3. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Yahweh talked with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. He's talking about Exodus 20. That's when the Torah was given, or begun to be given. The Sinai covenant, beginning with the Ten Commandments, the core of the Ten Commandments, Exodus 34:28. I stood between Yahweh and you at that time to declare to you the word of Yahweh, for you were afraid because of the fire and you did not go up to the mountain. So obviously, it's obvious here. But this man on 119 Ministries and all these Torah keepers, they're in the false paradigm. It has to be true what they say, because choice B, or brand X, is what? Mainstream Orthodox pagan Christianity. So whatever they say has to be true, because in their world, in their paradigm, in their model, there's only two choices. It's the law as written by Moses, and even they pervert that, or it's mainstream pagan Babylon mystery religion of Revelation 17, 1 through 5, of which the Catholic Church is the mother of harlots and her false doctrines, her false pagan holidays, of which the Hebrew roots Messianic movement, Herbert Armstrong, came out of. Okay. So they have to bend and twist the scriptures, the verses, to fit their paradigm. The Roman Catholic Church did not exist in the first century. The debate in the first century in the epistles was never about keeping mainstream Orthodox pagan Christianity and its holidays and Sunday Sabbath versus God's letter of the law, shadow, fixed appointed times, which Messiah came to fulfill and of which you get by faith, which I've shown you over and over and over again, which it's not in these debates. And if you present it to them, which I did with 4 or 5, they'll deny it. So, okay, so there's one. Okay, let's go to Proverbs. Proverbs 1. Proverbs 1:8. Notice, now this is Solomon here instructing his son Rehoboam. Okay, my son, hear the instruction of your father. Now, if you want to use this in a remez type thing, you can do it, of God the Father. But it's in its literal interpretation here, Solomon with this book of Proverbs, and he's talking to his son Rehoboam. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. Now, this word law here is, here it is, Proverbs 1:8. Hear, my son, the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. It is what? Torah. Direction, instruction, law. So this word Torah can be used outside of the law of Moses itself, or the first 5 books of Moses. So in other words, don't forsake the Torah of your mother, your mother's instructions, like Solomon's mother here. Actually, not Solomon, but Rehoboam's mother, Naamah. I hope I pronounced that right. Could give a simple instruction to her son Solomon. Hey, Solomon, make sure you go to bed early every night. And get up early in the morning to do your chores, to do this or whatever, to be instructed by your servants concerning what you will inherit in the future, your kingship. I'm just throwing, I know it's a high, I'm just throwing an example here. This word Torah can be used outside of the traditional use of the law or the Torah of Moses, or the first 5 books of the Torah, or the first 5 books of the Bible, of the Old Testament, the Tanakh. So your mother's instructions to you can be a Torah. There is a Torah of the priesthood contained within the law of Moses. It's the Torah of circumcision. What is the number 1 instruction concerning being a priest? You must die, you must be raised. Where is it at? You must die and you must be raised into the heavenlies to serve the reality of the shadow and copy of the heavenly things. You have to be a spirit being versus the common land person who won't have that status in the next age. The instruction of the Torah, or the Torah instruction to the priesthood of the firstborn ones, you have to be on the 8th day. You have to rise on the 8th day. You have to be a new creation. That's why on the morrow after the Sabbath is Pentecost, which doesn't get taught. Do you see? Do you get it? This guy couldn't even come up with an example of Abraham keeping the Sabbath, the holy days, and that. He had to use the example of taking his son up to Mount Moriah and be sacrificed. That was an instruction. That was a Torah, and that was Abraham's Torah instruction, commands from the Father. Another one would be to leave his family, get out of your country, get out from your family, and go to a land which I will show you. Another command or whatever decree would be to get circumcised and to circumcise your family. Okay. So do you see that the word Torah can be used other than the law of Moses? This guy, you know, it's the paradigm he lives in that's causing him to lie. He doesn't know any other, these people don't know any other world. Also, Proverbs 6:20, I won't go there, same thing. Torah of your mother. Again, there's a Torah of the priesthood, which is primarily circumcision, dying and being raised into the heavenlies. That's where Paul got his doctrine from. Now let's go to John chapter 1. Let's zero in on verse 17. Notice, for the Torah was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. Throw out the word but. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. But I mean, you can use it. Grace and truth from the Torah came through Jesus Christ, because he's the fulfiller of the Torah, and what he did gets imputed to you through faith. Like the Passover, like the Day of Atonement. He himself is our atonement. 1 John 2:2. And not only for us, but for the whole world. He himself is our peace. I forget which verse in Ephesians chapter 2. He himself is our peace, or our peace offering. Get it? All right. Grace and truth. You get that by grace, through faith, and not by the works of the law. Okay. To fulfill the peace offering as written by Moses, well, you had to bring an animal. You had to do the work. Okay. He did it for you, so that you might be a new creation, created in God for good works, works of servitude, works of a huios, Son of God. So you can see the law was given through Moses, not Abraham. They are lying to you. Herbert Armstrong was deceived because his wife came home one day and said, I'm keeping the true Sabbath. I'm keeping the real Sabbath, Saturday. So he was under a false doctrine of a Sabbath bias. Which days do you keep? Which Sabbath is the true Sabbath? Which day do you keep? Implying that there must be a Sabbath that you keep, a physical Sabbath rest. That wasn't the debate of the first century. Paul was alluding to the progressive prophetic revelations of the Torah, specifically the Torah of faith and the Torah of the priesthood. Romans 5:13. Let me zero in on this verse here. because I'm going to show you some different translations. Notice Romans 5:13. For until the Torah or the law, sin was in the world. Now notice, for until the law, sin was in the world. But sin is not imputed when there is no law. Let me just include 14. And then I'll go back. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over those who had not sinned according to the likeness of the transgression of Adam, who was a type of him who was to come. Notice, for until the law was given, sin was in the world. So there was a time when the law was not given. And he tells you when it was given. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses. And when Moses came, then the law was given to define sin. The Ten Commandments specifically. So let's go back to verse 13 and let's just get a few other translations to make this perfectly clear. Notice the amplified, I don't know what some of these translations are. Sin was in the world before the law was given. But sin is not charged against anyone when there is no law. So sin was in the world before the law was given. To be sure, sin was in the world before ever the law was given. For until the law, sin was in the world. Get it? In fact, sin was in the world before the law. They'll try to tell you that it began with Adam, as I will show in another video, maybe next week or during this week. The Complete Jewish Bible, last one. Sin was indeed present in the world before Torah was given. The instructions, the Torah, the commands Abraham was given was not the Torah of Moses. There was a time between Adam and Moses where the Torah was not given. Okay? Pretty plain. Okay. Romans 5, starting in verse 19. For as by one man's disobedience many were made sinners, so also by one man's obedience many were made righteous. By one man's disobedience, Adam, many or all were made sinners. Notice. Moreover, the law entered that the offense might abound. So at some time after Adam sinned, and sin passed on to all of mankind, there was a time when the law was not given. And we're not talking about oral Torah or the law of sacrifices. We're talking about the law of Moses. Okay, you can see the lies. All right, Galatians. Or excuse me, let's go back up to Romans 4. Notice Romans 4:13 through 15. For the promise that he would be heir of the world, that's Abraham, was not to Abraham or to his seed through the Torah. Notice the promise. They would be the heir of the world. It was not to Abraham or to his seed through the Torah. Did you just hear this guy say that the only way you're Abraham's seed or a child of Abraham is if you keep the Torah? You see how he's lying to you. But through the righteousness of faith. The Torah of faith. Yeshua introduced a radical new concept. This is the work of God. John 6, verse 29. That you believe in the one whom he has sent. What do you get when you believe? You get all the holy days. And you get the Torah of the priesthood. You get it all by faith, as I've demonstrated many times on this channel. There's a deep depth to faith in what you get, which they deny. Notice, for if those who are of the Torah, as written by Moses, are heirs, faith is made void and the promise of no effect. You go back again to Romans chapter 3, verses 24 through 27. He shows you plainly that you get the Passover, redemption, that's what the Passover is all about, and you get the mercy seat, which is the Day of Atonement. Where's boasting then? Right? Is it of works or the works of the Torah? No, by the Torah of faith. Okay? He's lying to you. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be according to grace. And again, you get the priesthood, the Torah of the priesthood. You get the full fulfillment of circumcision by faith, the putting off of the body of sins, the body of flesh, on the morrow after the Sabbath, as I have witnessed many times. And we'll finish up with Galatians 3, 15 through 18. I went through this last week. Galatians 3, 15 through 18. Brethren, I speak in the manner of men, though it is only a man's covenant. Covenant of circumcision, a huios, son of God. Yet if it is confirmed, no one annuls or adds to it. Now to Abraham and his, you don't add to this. You're a finished product. And what are we doing? We are upholding the Torah of Moses, specifically the Torah of the priesthood, or the firstborn ones, or the huios, sons of God. I've taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn of Israel. The Levites are mine. I am their inheritance. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He does not say unto seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, who is Christ. And the shadow was Isaac. Isaac was not under the Torah, as written by Moses. And this I say, that the Torah, which was 430 years later, and you get him to say it's the animal sacrifices, it's the book of the law, Torah to the tribes. They just lie. It's the Torah of Moses, right? Cannot annul the covenant that was confirmed before God in Messiah, that it should make the promise of no effect. For if the promise is of the Torah, then the promise is of no effect. as he said in Romans 4. For if the inheritance is of the Torah, what did this guy tell you? That if you are a son of Abraham, a child of Abraham, if you are a child of the faith of Abraham, you're keeping Torah. He did a little proof texting there. It is no longer of promise, but God gave it to Abraham, I promise. They get around it by saying it's obedience. But if you push them, they'll come out and say it's righteousness. It's your own works. And of course, not too many people know about the Torah of the priesthood and how Paul alluded to it in his epistles. So they don't understand his writings. And they're twisting and bending. Both these sides are destroying the whole work of God. Mainstream Orthodox pagan Christianity, and this Hebrew roots Messianic movement. Yeah, I mean, I can bring in once again chapter 4, Galatians 21:31. These are two covenants. And he said of the Sinai one, throw it out. Because why? You're under the Torah of the priesthood. You're under the Torah of the firstborn ones. You've been raised in according to the operation of God through faith, God doing all the work. You've been raised into the heavenlies. You're his body. You're his flesh and his bones. That's figurative. You're his eyes. You're his ears. You're his arms. Like the priests, if you read the Torah, for the most part, the priests, the common priests, or his body or his sons did all the work. He's the brain. He's the head. You are the one who carries out his instructions. You're the help meet. That's the Torah of the priesthood, a finished product. That's what you're going to be doing in the next age. You can see they're just outright liars. But their paradigm has caused them to be liars. This is the most dangerous movement of all. They are destroying the whole Torah, which is once again God's plan for the restitution of all things. Okay? Pretty plain. So thank you for your time and thank you for listening.